So, and something that you talk about is plant-based aphrodisiacs and natural turn-ons. Okay, that one got me. It's like, even though I'm in my 70s, I still,
You
I
still
still
got
like,
it, girl.
I'm gonna say I do. But talk to us about the plant-based aphrodisiacs and natural turn-ons.
Oh, there are so many. Let's see, where to start. Nutmeg, like the little silly thing you grate into your latte sometime. That was believed to make people so hot that it was banned for a while. So the next time you like want to grate a little in there or have some vegan nog, have a good time with it. And one of my other favorites, I love to push greens on people.
You're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage. We're here to plant seeds on compassion to animals, your health, and the environment, and topics related to business that align with all three of those areas. Enjoy the show. Did you know that 80% of chronic illnesses are preventable, and what we put on our plates plays a major role? Today's guest, Ellen Kanner, has spent her life exploring the powerful intersection of food, wellness, culture, and sustainability. Ellen is an award-winning author of Feeding the Hungry Ghost, Life, Faith, and What to Eat for Dinner, and her newly released cookbook, Miami Vegan, Plant-Based Recipes from the Tropics to Your Table, which I have to tell you, you've got to get a copy of this book. It is unbelievable. A celebrated vegan chef, writer, and culinary instructor, Ellen's work has been featured in Huffington Post, Savor, Veg News, Eating Well, and Edible South Florida. From developing recipes for leading food brands to teaching conscious cooking in her hometown of Miami, Ellen inspires us to see food not just as fuel, but as a way to connect with our health, our heritage, and each other. Ellen, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Can you see I'm blushing? My goodness, what an effusive welcome. Thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. And, I have to say thank you with all the locations that I mentioned. You've been featured, and I know there's a lot more. I'm humbled to have you on my show because my community is really interested in, one, how do they become plant-based and then ultimately vegan? Because I identify as a vegan, but initially did not. I would not call myself vegan because I thought vegans were crazy. And now I know we are, which is a great thing. But they also want to know, how do you have variety in your meals? And how do you eat healthy? And how do you eat in a way that's appealing to other people? So let's start with your journey of when you became vegan, why you became vegan.
Like you, Kathleen, I did not go vegan from get-go. First of all, I gave up meat when I was 12, and that was a whole different world. I did it because I love animals. I still love animals. But let us say the available vegan options out there, there weren't any really. So I went vegetarian. It was a great thing to do when I was 12 because it opened me up to a whole new world that always existed, but I didn't know about it. This is all before the internet, so I had to kind of find my own way. And when you're a tween, it's kind of fun to yank your parents' chain, and this did that. So it was a double win. And I learned so much about our food system. I think that's what steered me to become a food writer, that I wanted to share with people what was happening in our food system. And the more I learned, the more I decided that being vegetarian was no longer enough, that I needed to go vegan. And that meant I had to be more creative in the kitchen. And I am so glad. I never wanted to be a professional chef. I had a very brief stint in a commercial kitchen, and that taught me that's not going to work for me. But if I can not only give you something delicious that's vegan, and I teach you how to make it, then you can take care of the rest of your life.
So when did you identify as vegan? You were 12 when you gave up meat and became vegetarian, which, I think is pretty phenomenal because nowadays, and you mentioned pre-internet, there's people that they don't know what that actually means. It's like, no, we come from the time when we actually had phonograph records and we had dial phones and the phone was on the wall and we had party lines. And they're like, what is that? It's so ancient. But the reality is that we had to figure a lot of things out in a way that is not available today. So when was it that you actually crossed that invisible line into identifying as a vegan?
30 years ago. And I do not like to give out my age, but I will. I'm 64, going to be 65. I take no medicine whatsoever. I had a perpetually runny nose as a kid. I never get sick now. I take no medication. I'm telling you, I don't really focus on the health aspect of being vegan, but it's there. That's the amazing thing. You can get friggin' delicious food. You can take care of the planet. You can take care of yourself. It's all together on the plate.
It is. And actually, I turned 71 in May. And
Woohoo!
yeah, it's like, and sometimes I just go, is that even possible? Because one is, I don't feel 71. And, I remember my folks saying, oh, they didn't feel their age. And my mom actually did not age well. And she used to say, do I look that old? Like the other lady over there. And it's like, well, you want to be
Kind of,
polite,
yeah.
but like this morning, I took both my dogs out for a walk and I walk near the river and I wear a weight belt and, it's a vest, a weight vest. And I go to the gym on a regular basis and I'm very, very active. And like you, I don't take any medicine and any medications. And I recently had a wellness check where they did it over Zoom. And the nurse practitioner, she's saying, well, how many medications do you take? And it's none. She goes, you don't take any? And I said, no. And she goes, well, you must take some over the counter stuff. And I said, well, I take creatine, I take hemp hearts, I take flax seeds, those types of things. And she was shocked. And she actually thanked me at the end of the call. She said, you have no idea how refreshing this is. And I said, well, I attribute it to my diet, and just my lifestyle choices. So what did you notice? And you said 30 years ago you went vegan?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing because I'm a baby vegan. I went vegan in 2018. So I'm still a baby vegan and I meet people like yourself who have been doing it for years. How do you deal with people who say, oh, you can't survive without meat, you can't survive without dairy? How do you address that? And then I want to get into the whole process of writing your books.
Okay, thank you. How I think sometimes just the vibrancy of looking at you, of being with me, is a way to show people that no, we're not weaklings. We're not that that a vegan diet is a very vibrant and exciting diet. That it's not less, it's more. It's a whole range of foods. It's more fun in the mouth. It's more money in your wallet at a time when, wow, grocery store prices are astronomical. You know, when I started as a food writer, there were two different camps. There were the nutritionists and there were the chefs. And I used to go to these conferences and I wanted to say, hey, guys, we're not at war. We just need to come together because what you are pitching as nutrition is not going to satisfy people. And the chefs, while it is wonderful to create these delicious plates, do you look at the disease rate in this country? Do you realize where it's coming from? So much can come from plants. So much can come from how you spice your food so you can give it flavor and pizzazz and leave out the animals altogether.
Right, right. Well, and I love what you said about the cost because a lot of times people they associate vegan with the processed vegan foods, which those are unhealthy. Some of them, some are not, but most are filled with oil, salt. Some even have sugar in them, and so they're expensive. And people say, well, eating vegan is very expensive, and what people fail to realize is a lot of foods that they're already consuming could be considered vegan. So how do you do a cost comparison with people when they say, oh, eating vegan is so expensive? I did actually on Facebook just today. I did a meme where I had the cost of a pound of hamburger, what the actual hidden costs are too, not only the price, but the cholesterol, the fat, all of that. And then I compared it to beans and legumes. And it was just like, and then I compared it to compassion, 100% cruel with the hamburger meat and 100% compassion with the beans and legumes. So, how do you address that, one, in your conversations, in your writing, and in your books?
Well, Kathleen, you just hit on something. It's very important to me. Beans and rice are my love language. They are the most wallet friendly, pantry sustainable, period. Do you know beans are one of the most sustainable crops you can grow? And here I am living in Miami where we're facing climate change every day,
Right.
and I'm afraid that's spreading all over the country. These things matter. If you can live lighter on the earth, you are not only doing yourself a favor, you're doing your community and your planet a favor. Raising livestock takes a terrific toll on the planet in terms of carbon output, in terms of land and water use. We have to be a little smarter about our food choices.
I just thought you need to get a t-shirt and sell it on your website. Beans and rice are my love language. I love
I
that. I
think
mean,
I will.
it's like that's priceless. That's priceless. So with your books, you started with the book. I have to put my glasses on for this one. There are certain things that as we age, and your first book is Hungry Ghost: Life, Faith, and What to Eat for Dinner. Or Feeding the Hungry Ghost: Life, Faith, and What to Eat for Dinner. So, how did you come up with that title? Tell us about that book.
Okay, that was 10 years ago. I had lived in Japan with my husband when we were first married, and there's a thing called the Hungry Ghost Festival. It happens now around the summer. And I saw all my neighbors like going down to the river, and they would go to their temple and they would light candles and they would pray and they would bring food with them, but they weren't eating it. I was still kind of a newbie in Tokyo, and I asked my downstairs neighbor, who is a very proper Japanese woman. I still bow when I think of her. And I said, Can you? I don't understand. Can you tell me what's happening? She said, Oh, Hungry Ghost Festival. I said, what is that for? She said, In Japan, we believe that people who have been hungry and needy and clutchy in life are that way even after they pass. So they come back and haunt you, and they're not happy. So to appease them, we pray to them and we give them food offerings. And I thought, wow. The same thing works when we're alive. If you give us compassion, if you give us attention and you give us nourishing, comforting food, it quiets our crazies. And I thought, wow, that is a great concept to get across. It was a great way to start talking to people about what it is to be vegan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And with the process of writing the book, what was your process? Because as an author myself, I'm always fascinated with what makes somebody decide to write a book, because apparently like 93% of the adult population wants to write a book, and only a handful of people actually do. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of people that write books, but the reality is when you do the comparison of who wants to and who actually does. What was your process for writing your book?
I was writing for a lot of different publications at that
Mm-hmm.
time, Kathleen.
Mm-hmm.
I was Huffington Post Meatless Monday blogger. I had a syndicated column in McClatchy. I was writing for a lot of magazines that haven't even made it anymore, but they were out there. And I love writing for newspapers and for magazines. But the thing is, you have to be very tightly focused. You have to hit your numbers in terms of word count or column inches. So as I was learning about chefs and I was learning about our growers, I was having to leave some of the most delicious parts out of a story sometimes just to make it fit. And Feeding the Hungry Ghost was where I got to add everything back in and just give a fuller picture of our food system and our role in it.
Well, let's talk about the food system, because quite a few people do not know the reality of what goes into the processing of, if you will, animal-based products. They think that happy cows are living out on a pasture, and when they die, they're happy to die. And it's like where they get that concept is beyond me. But
From the food system, that's what they want you to think.
absolutely, absolutely. So, what is the reality of, without getting too graphic, because we know what's going on, but there are people that are still in denial. My handyman, it's amazing. He had a threat of colon cancer, and he drinks a gallon of milk a day. I mean, literally a
Whoa.
gallon of milk a day, and he eats ribs and all this, and he knows I'm vegan, and he'll tease me. And I said, John, you need to know I don't appreciate that kind of teasing. I really don't. And because he would say things that typical carnivores would say, and he thought it was funny. I said, no, it's really not funny. And so he stopped. And it was interesting because recently he actually said something about, there might be something to the fact that you're vegan and you're pretty darn healthy. And, if you get a cold, it's gone in a day. If we get a cold, we're dealing with it for weeks on end. And it's like, there you go. So the seeds have been planted, but even with that, he goes, I would rather die than give up my milk. And it's like, well, you might.
Well, you may have to, and that's not what we want.
And it's not like we're not all going to die someday, but the reality is what's the quality of life that we have. So,
Right.
The whole processing of food and everything, what can you say to people to get them to maybe at least consider, not to shame people, not to guilt trip them, but to get them to possibly consider that much of what they've been fed is propaganda, and it's by food manufacturers, healthcare, and big pharma.
Good point. Sometimes I try and really pin it down. Tell me what you like to eat. Tell me a product you get at the grocery store. What's in it? And there's kind of a blank look, like, I don't know. Eating is one of the most intimate acts we can commit. We take something into ourselves. I think we owe it to ourselves to know what we're doing, what we're feeding ourselves. I am a big, big believer in kitchen literacy, which is a fancy term for learning how to cook. Doesn't have to be top chef level. You just have to be able to take care of yourself in the most basic way. That's another myth that the food system is pitching us, like, oh, cooking is such a chore. It's so terrible. We'll take care of it for you. But what are you feeding us in the meantime? I'm a big advocate for whole foods, so you know what it is you're feeding yourself.
Right. Well, then you have the argument from people that say, well, what about the pesticides and this and that? And it's like, we're not going to hit things 100%, but we can certainly get closer to a diet that is healthy, especially if we grow our own vegetables and things that nature. Now, Miami Vegan, your new book, which came out in May, so it's brand new, just hot off the press. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with what I saw inside that book. And you have images of these beautiful meals that you cook. How difficult is it for people to apply your recipes and come up with something that looks relatively close to what you've created?
I hope it's very easy. I am a terrible food photographer. I did most of these photos on my iPhone, and my husband can tell you.
Get out. That's amazing.
When I do a food shot, you have to turn off the volume because I swear a lot. Like, the lighting is terrible. I'm kind of salty. But I do want these recipes to work for you. So I don't have any really elaborate styling. I try and throw some tropical stuff in there. A lot of the leaves and fruit and stuff is from my own backyard.
Nice.
Yes, and that was very important for me for the cover of the book, which I think is beautiful. And everything on it comes from my photographer's garden because she did the beautiful cover, or mine. So it's all real. I want you to know this is real. This is not fabricated.
That's incredible because the images they do they're very appealing. And now let's say that somebody is fairly new to plant-based eating, because I will tell you, years ago, I had given up on cooking, and it was to do with a marriage. My ex-husband always criticized what I cooked.
Mm.
I was young. I was in my early 20s, and we got divorced. And he said, "You just can't cook, and you're trying to poison." I mean, it was a bad marriage. That's why I'm not in it anymore. But I gave up cooking. I said, I will never, ever cook again. Once I became plant-based, and initially I became plant-based for my health, and then as I did more and more research, and I have rescued animals for years, I was rescuing while I was eating the animals, which, I hear this a lot. And once I really discovered what it meant to be vegan, it was like, okay, I crossed that invisible line. And it actually happened at the grocery store. I was walking by the meat department, and I literally stopped in my tracks, and I had a visceral response to looking at the meat, and I started crying, and I was like, how could I have been so blind? And I needed to go to that level of pain to really get that, oh, this is a lifestyle. This is not just a food choice. This is a lifestyle choice. But once I started exploring and experimenting with different recipes, I found I love cooking now. I really, really enjoy it, because I think of the health benefits, and I think of the love I'm creating for my guests who are going to be at my table, and that it's an offering. So for people who might be kind of hesitant to cook, or they've never really been taught how to cook, what are some steps that they can take based on your books? Where can they start?
Well, I will give you one example. I have a friend who I love dearly, who does not cook really, but he loves to watch the cooking shows and he loves to critique them. And he got my book, was honored, and he said, I could probably cook these recipes. I said, you can, let's do it. Uh, and so I dragged him into the kitchen and we made some plant-based ceviche, which is like 5 ingredients in 5 minutes.
Hmm.
I do have some slow cooked recipes that take longer, but they're all pretty easy. I want these to be doable for you, and I'll meet you where you live. So if you want a fancy dessert, there's some in there, and there's some real basic things too, like vegan pimento cheese, which
I saw
is
that. I thought, oh my gosh, that looked delicious.
I don't know where the idea for that came from, but I guess like one of my southern friends was like, "Yeah, you gotta have some pimento cheese," which is cheese and mayonnaise, the traditional recipe. I thought,
Mhm.
well, I'm no, that's not happening. But you can do amazing things with softened cashews, and you can do that in the blender in a few minutes. You can do a terrific Miami recipe. A lot of people like smoked fish dip. Well, how do you make that without the fish? You use nori flakes. Nori is the wrap that you get in sushi. It has a
Oh yeah.
wonderful
Okay. Okay.
salty, briny, fishy taste. That's not fish, it's seaweed. Um, Artichoke hearts and tempeh. So it is super protein intense. You get the whole texture, a little blob of vegan mayo, and the nori flakes. Another one you can zip in the food processor in a couple minutes. It's great as a crudité. It's great as a sandwich filling. All my guy friends love it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So where can people find you, Ellen? What's the best website to go to, and where can they find your books?
Oh, well, thank you. You can find Miami Vegan almost anywhere now. I'm very pleased. It's on, actually, PETA has it on their website. I
Oh
was
my
very
gosh, that's
honored.
awesome. That's awesome.
All the online bookstores, if you've got a local indie, ask for it because I do want it to be easy for you to get. You can find me at Broccoli Rising. That's the name of my
I love
Substack.
it.
And on my website, Soulful Vegan.
I love it. You need to have a t-shirt line. I just think that, beans and rice are my love language. Soulful Rising, is it?
Soulful vegan and broccoli
Soulful vegan
rising.
and broccoli rising. Okay, you need to have t-shirts. I'm telling you, that's going to be the next line of products that you have. So let's say that somebody really is interested in making some changes. Maybe they're not 100% there yet, but they want to start easy. What are some recommendations that you can give people for their pantry? Like what spices are good to have that are must-haves that would help with virtually any meal that they want to make? What kind of condiments should they have? What kind of vegetables? So let's start there and let's really take people through a journey of how do you go from never cooking plant-based, or you think you've never cooked plant-based, to having what you need. And then let's look at how could somebody transition to a more whole food plant-based lifestyle.
Can we start with beans and rice? I think that's really
Absolutely.
one of the reasons I love it is that beans and rice are the core of so many cultures and cuisines. You know, they're the people's food, and you can spin it so many different ways. I have a recipe for Cuban black beans, which are slow simmered. I have a recipe for Caribbean pigeon peas and rice. And all that changes is the spicing. And the sofrito, that's the saute of very simple vegetables like peppers and onions and garlic. You can do so much with that. There's take the same rice and beans and use the Cajun Holy Trinity of celery, pepper, and onion, and it changes the whole texture and flavor. So you're already getting a complete protein, a very satisfying meal. This is where you can start ramping it up and adding greens. Greens are so much more forgiving than you think. If you make a pot of pasta even, add some uh, add some fresh greens when you drain it. The greens sort of wilt right in.
Ah.
And I think that's a great way to sort of amp up getting more goodness in you. And I do not say we are sneaking vegetables when you add
I
them.
saw that you don't like that, and I love the fact that you don't like that. Why should we have to sneak vegetables?
Right. No, it enhances food. It makes everything better.
So, and something that you talk about is plant-based aphrodisiacs and natural turn-ons. Okay, that one got me. It's like, even though I'm in my 70s, I still,
You
I
still
still
got
like,
it, girl.
yeah, I'm going to say I do. But talk to us about the plant-based aphrodisiacs and natural turn-ons.
Oh, there are so many. Let's see where to start. Nutmeg, like the little silly thing you grate into your latte sometime, that was believed to make people so hot that it was banned for a while. So the next time you like
Wow.
want to grate a little in there or have some vegan nog, have a good time with it. Um, and one of my other favorites, I love to push greens on people, is arugula. One of our first herbalists was Pliny the Elder. He was from Rome. He was from ancient Rome, and he believed it excited people.
And what was it?
Arugula.
Arugula. Oh, really? Okay. Because
Yeah.
I'm writing down another T-shirt for you. I'm a green pusher. Um, I'm going to give you your whole line of shirts. So now, when somebody goes to the grocery store, what would you recommend so that they're not filling their cart with ultra processed foods? Because we both know that the more you go to the center of the store, the more you're getting the garbage food. So, how do you recommend for somebody new to this? Do they write a list? How do they stick to the list? Where do they shop in the store?
Good questions, all of them. I'm a big believer in the rule of one because you're right. Trying to change everything is overwhelming, and
Mhm.
I want to set you up for success. So start small. Maybe go to your farmer's market. Uh, Find something local, seasonal, and talk to your farmer. Find out how they grow, what they grow. And, getting to know your local farmer is like one of the best experiences and friendships you can develop. Next time you go to the grocery store, yeah, I still make a list, especially since I give classes. It's like, oh, do I have enough of this? So I'm a little anal that way. That's okay. And the next time you go to the store, get a new vegetable, a new fresh vegetable or a new fruit because we've got so many gorgeous fruits in season now. And, nature is very smart. Now that it's so hot and people don't want to eat so much, cooling, hydrating, sweet fruit is just like the best thing. It's like nature knows what we want.
Right, right.
So, like, treat yourself to something maybe that you wouldn't have gotten before.
So how can we, I want to ask this in a very respectful way to what's going on right now because we're watching a lot of things happen with farmers. And unfortunately, a lot of the workers are not coming to work anymore for obvious reasons. What's
And that
going to
makes
happen?
me so mad. I mean,
Uh,
Miami is delicious because it's diverse. And
right,
we get rid
right.
of that. I'm thinking, okay,
I
so what are
agree.
we? Mhm.
100%, 100%. It's like I'm appalled with a lot of what's going on. And not only the human rights issues that are going on, but to our food system, which ties into human rights issues. Because I live in Oregon, and in the county I live in, I didn't know this until I got to know some people at United Way, and they do a lot of children's programs, but we have a very high level of poverty in our county.
Mm.
And I was unaware of it until I was talking with people at United Way. But one of the biggest issues is food insecurity.
Ugh.
What what do you think we can do to raise awareness around that? Because the reality is that if children are not being nourished properly, they are getting diseases that used to be reserved for adults. They can't concentrate in school. They can't get the education. I mean, it's this whole domino effect. So that's why I love what you're doing, Ellen, with your books. And I want to hear more about your classes. But what can people do within their own community to start making some noise about what's really happening?
Great point. First of all, you need to start taking care of yourselves because
Hmm.
if you aren't feeling your best, you're not going to be able to make any change personally, professionally, or in terms of policy. So, yeah, get involved with a local food pantry. Find out about what's going on in your neighborhood because, yeah, almost, I think in Miami, 60% of the families are food insecure.
Mm.
That is a fancy term for people not getting enough
Right,
of the right food
right.
to eat. Uh, Become aware of what's going on in your school system because a lot of school programs had free lunches that are now being phased out. Um, okay, I need to I need
No,
to
no,
bring the temperature
it's
down a
like
little.
we could definitely get up on a soapbox on this because it's horrendous what's happening. And
Our
and like
children are an investment in our future.
absolutely. And regardless of the community they come from, regardless of the religion that they practice, regardless of political, so I mean none of that really matters. Our kids need to be taken care of. So, that's why I love what you're doing because you are raising awareness around healthy eating. So, with that, the classes that you do, tell us about that. And where can people find these classes?
I'm giving one at Miami Beach Botanical Garden in a couple weeks. I love to be able to connect people with fresh local food. So I'm bringing a lot of produce that's just out that's fresh and sticky sweet now because it's mango season, and I'm
Ooh.
showing them how to put it together for something easy and cool. So we're going to do some cool plates and some vegan charcuterie because if you do Instagram, like the charcuterie boards, charcuterie is just meat. Um, but the French always make it so stylish. So
Right.
let's take it a little further. Let's get rid of the meat and keep the style and keep the freshness and the flavor and the dazzling color that vegetables offer.
My niece actually has a company that she does, and it's called Henderson Cheese Company, and she does these boards. And I said to her, I said, "Can you do some vegan stuff?" And she's been doing these beautiful plates with vegetables and fruits and just like magnificent. And
Mhm.
and she goes, there's not much of a calling. I said, oh, no, no, no. There is a calling. You just haven't made it available. And so she's been doing more and more of non-meat and non-cheese boards. And it's like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. But, and she's a beautiful artist with the way she structures it. But when she does the vegetable and fruit plates, I always like it. And I comment. The other ones, I just, next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
And she knows how, and I love her dearly and she loves me dearly, but and she knows how I feel about that. And I'm again trying to plant seeds. So Ellen, what is something that I haven't asked you that you would like to share with the listeners and the viewers?
It's not a question, it's a statement. I'm just so impressed by what you're doing. When I became vegan, I stuck out like a sore thumb, and I told you I lived in Japan. There's a saying, uh, the nail that sticks up must be hammered down. So I was not necessarily comfortable with being the only vegan out there.
Mhm.
Now that there's this wave of commercial vegan products, some of which are better than others, as we
Right,
have said.
right.
And there are so many people going vegan or wanting to go vegan and having a vegan business. Wow. We do need to advocate for ourselves. And I love that you do that with Vegan Visibility.
Thank
You
you.
teach
Thank you.
people how.
And I've had my business 31 years, and when I became vegan, I had no clue. It was not on my radar at all to turn that into a vegan business. And one day I was out on a walk, and it just kept coming: vegan visibility, and I thought, let's see what we can do with that. And I was warned. I had people saying you're never going to make a living at it, yada, yada, yada. And I started buying into that. And so I went through kind of a rough patch. But once I said, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense at all. And I just crossed my own invisible line. And I got to tell you, I have more than enough. I really enjoy doing what I do. And my number one criteria for people being on my show is they must subscribe to a vegan lifestyle. And it's so interesting because I get pitched all the time by people saying, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. I ask them that one question and they go, well, I'm almost there. It's like, oh no, it's like being pregnant. You're not almost pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. It's like being vegan. You're either vegan or you're not vegan. So Ellen, I just so appreciate all that you're doing. And I wish you lots and lots of success with your new book. And I definitely will do what I can to get the message out about what you're doing. So in closing, what are your final thoughts?
Everyone, it is so much easier and more fun to go vegan than you could ever imagine. You get the health, you get the sustainability, you get the animal rights, and you get friggin' delicious food.
And you have aphrodisiacs. So I love that.
Yes.
So, well, I want to thank you for being on the show. And I want to thank those of you who have been listening and watching. I'm Kathleen Gage. I'm your host of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show and Vegan Visibility. And to see other episodes that we've done, please visit veganvisibility.com. And I encourage you, go out, live consciously, think of the animals, think of your health, think of the environment, and think of the children. Have a great day. You've been listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage, inviting you to subscribe to this channel wherever you're listening or watching the show. And please let your friends know about the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. Live healthy.